On December 26th, less than 2 months after the Bolshevik seizure of power in 1917, the Soviet of People's Commissars appropriated 2 million gold rubles for the support of world revolution.
The Soviet of People's Commissars considers it necessary to offer assistance by all possible means, including money, to the left international wing of the labor movement of all countries.
Thus was established a basic principle of international communism, namely, world revolution under the assistance and guidance of the Soviet Union. The year 1919 saw the founding of the International Organization of Communist Parties, the Communist International, or Comintern, as it was called. In 1919, in Moscow, a meeting of the Politburo debated the importance and function of the new organization. There were 5 members of the Politburo at that time. Lenin, the acknowledged leader of the party and the new Russian state. Trotsky, outstanding propagandist and organizer of the Red Army. The theoreticians Bukharin and Kamenev, and Joseph Stalin, a party functionary.
The tactical problem of the moment is one of ensuring coordinated leadership for the forthcoming revolutions in Germany, Austria, and Bulgaria.
Perhaps you're right, Vladimir Ilyich. But are we certain that the situation is genuinely ripe for revolution?
All the more reason, my dear Bukharin, for assuring real communist leadership against the mere reformists, particularly the Social Democrats. Rigid discipline imposed from above on those organizations willing to join us, and a campaign both legal and illegal to attract the masses to the communist banner, that is what the Communist International should be striving for. And who but ourselves should be making these preparations and determining the time to strike?
Exactly. Our first objective should be to prepare for the proletarian revolution in the more advanced and industrialized countries. Without this, socialism in Russia may perish. We must not for one moment forget that socialism must be international.
Trotsky, you're just peddling your theory of the permanent revolution again.
Kamenev, you're not the realist you think you are. You know as well as I do that revolution in advance...
Very well, please.
Comrades, please. There's so much work to be done. Comrade Stalin, have you anything to say at this point?
Only that having our agents in other countries is probably useful.
Our agents? You talk like a Russian nationalist, not a communist. The revolution must be international in order for communism to succeed.
The expected upheavals never took place, except for abortive uprisings in Germany and a short-lived communist regime in Hungary. As a result of these failures, the communists outside of Russia gradually became exactly what the Kremlin wanted them to become, agents of Soviet policy. However, the main objective of the Comintern, world revolution followed by the dictatorship of the proletariat, has never changed. The history of international communism is extensively documented in the Hoover Institution on War, Revolution, and Peace at Stanford University. Here to comment on international communism is the Assistant Director of the Hoover Institution, Witold Swarakowski.
The first international organization of socialist-oriented workers was created in 1864 by Karl Marx. This so-called First International was little more than a discussion club for the airing of workers' grievances and was dissolved in 1876. The Second International, founded in 1889, 6 years after Marx's death, was a loose organization of socialist parties in various countries. The Second International attempted to coordinate the efforts of socialist parties and labor organizations to improve wages, working conditions, and the like. Prior to World War I, it urged the workers not to support their governments in the event of war. But when war broke out, the workers, particularly in France and Germany, did support their governments. It was this action that prompted Lenin to denounce the Second International and to form in January 1919 a Third or Communist International.
The Third International came to be called the Comintern. The Second Congress of the Comintern met in Petrograd and Moscow in July and August of 1920. There, Grigory Zinoviev, who had been installed as head of the Comintern, reaffirmed the ideas of the imminence of revolution in Europe and of the Second International as the principal enemy of that revolution.
The Communist International was founded 15 months ago, and from its very first steps, it naturally had to cross swords with the Second International. Both our friends and our enemies in all Europe and America must face this fact and also recognize that our struggle has been crowned with success, and that as a result of this duel, the Second International has been knocked in the head by the Third International. The working class is coming into power, and the bourgeoisie, in its despair, seizes upon the half-dead Second International and strangles it in its dying grasp. There is no doubt that both are approaching definite ruin. Their collapse will make it possible for an international union of workmen to create a new world founded on communism. The idea of democracy has faded away before our very eyes.
Zinoviev went on to analyze the political situations in various countries and to attack measures taken in the United States and elsewhere which suppress the spread of revolutionary activities in the unsettled post-war years. He then made a familiar prediction.
A short time will pass, and the proletariat of all countries, in a single outburst, with a clearly defined aim and as a single entity, will march forward to victory under the leadership of the Communist International. Long live the working class of the whole world. Long live the Communist International.
The principal speech on the opening day of the Congress was made by Lenin, who was greeted with enthusiastic applause as he made his report on the international situation. He, too, spoke in terms of an imminent revolution in Europe.
A revolutionary crisis is at hand. This now raises a question. Can we place hope in the strength and organization of a revolutionary class, a class of oppressed, to overthrow the disintegrating society of exploiters? The exploited masses lack the revolutionary consciousness of the organization and preparedness of their vanguard, namely, that very thing for the sake of which we have come together at this Second Congress of the Communist International. On our road are many difficulties, but they are passing with each day and with each hour. Everywhere we have advanced detachments. Everywhere we have proletarian armies, although poorly organized and needing reorganization. We are able to organize these into a single detachment, a single force. If you will help us accomplish this, then nothing will prevent us from accomplishing our task. And this task will be that of leading on to the victory of the world revolution and to the establishment of an international proletarian Soviet Republic.
The Executive Committee of the Comintern formulated a series of theses, or platform planks, for presentation to the Congress. One of the chief authors of the many theses was Karl Radek, Secretary of the Executive Committee.
I shall read back Section 18 of the platform resolution on the role of the Communist Party in the proletarian revolution. The basic starting point in the whole organization work of the Communist Party must be the creation of communist groups. Everywhere, wherever there is even a small number of proletarians or semi-proletarians, in every professional or trade union, in every cooperative organization, in every shop, in every governmental institution, everywhere where there can be found at least 3 people sympathetic with communism, it is necessary immediately to organize a communistic group. Only the organized activity of communists makes it possible for the vanguard of the working class to lead the whole class. All communist groups operating in non-party organizations must submit implicitly to the party organization as a whole, irrespective of whether the party is at the given moment legal or illegal. Communist groups of all kinds should recognize further subordination to each other in strict hierarchical order, and as far as possible according to a most rigid system.
Comrade Radek, will you also read back the preceding section of the resolution which stresses the importance of the illegal work of the party?
Yes. Section 17. In a country where the bourgeoisie or the counter-revolutionary social democracy is in power, the Communist Party must learn to coordinate its legal work with its illegal work. And the legal work must always be under the effective control of the illegal party.
Throughout the Congress, great emphasis was placed upon the importance of communist infiltration whenever and wherever possible, and on the primacy of the illegal apparatus of the party. Communism as an international conspiracy was on the march. Trotsky, in his closing speech at the Congress, put it this way.
The months since the founding of the Communist International have been rich in profound historic content. We must look backward in order to determine the road traveled, but without taking our eyes off the enemy and without losing time, go forward. Now we have come out on the road that leads to world communism.
In 1921, the Comintern developed a tactical approach known as the United Front. This was an appeal direct to the workers over the heads of their social democratic leaders. It invited them to follow communist leadership, and it urged them to make demands for wage increases and working conditions, demands so unreasonable as to create an irreconcilable situation between the workers on one hand and their employers and governments on the other. These efforts of the communists to break the workers away from their social democratic leaders failed. Attempts to foment revolution in Germany in 1923 and in Bulgaria in 1925 also ended in failure. Then, when the USSR found it advantageous to establish normal diplomatic and commercial relations with other states, the Kremlin leaders were quick to perceive that their widely advertised aims of world revolution were incompatible with the conduct of normal diplomacy. This resulted in changing the Comintern from being the vanguard of the world revolution to a kind of border guard for the Soviet fatherland.
Stalin's attitude toward the Comintern is summed up in a word he used frequently when referring to it. He called it Lavachka, or Little General Store. By the time the 6th Congress of the International convened in July 1928, Stalin had successfully eliminated Trotsky and Zinoviev from all positions of leadership. Bukharin was now head of the Comintern, but it was Stalin who pulled the strings. The duties of the foreign communist parties to the USSR were clearly spelled out in a speech by Bukharin.
International proletariat and the USSR. Comrades, in view of the fact that the USSR is the only fatherland of the international proletariat, the principal bulwark of its achievements, and the most important factor for